Hey, Jerry here. This time, I'm here to talk about alignments. Hup, hold criticism, hold your words. These are only my opinions. This is everything that I have developed my games around, and while there are a lot of different opinions throughout the community, these are the ones that I've found have helped me or my players the most, whether it be helping to guide their character in decision making, or working out what sort of actions their character may take in a certain situation. So first we'll start off with, what are alignments? Alignments are almost like a code of ethics, or a lack of them. You've got everything from the law-abiding knight of the realm to the handsome rogue that dashes through the night, grasping at pockets and taking what he can. Now I'm going to explain a little bit about each of these as we go. And remember, these are my opinions and how I interpret them. My players, some of them, have different opinions, as will possibly you and other viewers, but these are just here to help explain what they mean, or at least how I see them. Now, just quickly, alignments, how do they function, what are they? So, what's the difference between lawful good and lawful evil, chaotic neutral and true neutral? Each of them has a different, think like a tagline. So, lawful functions as, functionally, they will follow the law, they respect the law, whether it be their own code that they follow to a T, or the law of the land. It can vary, but it's generally a more disciplined. They follow the rules, so to speak. Chaotic is the opposite. They're free spirits at heart, and they may follow the law to kind of keep things a little easier if they want to, but in the overall scheme of things, they don't much care for these rules, restrictions, and guidelines. They do what they want or what they see fit. Then you've got good and evil. Now, good and evil are a little more self-explanatory. Good people are more likely to help, to do what's right, and not simply cause harm for the fun of it. Whereas evil people may abuse their power. They may find a helpless villager and rob them simply because they can. They might burn down a few buildings because it looks like fun. Evil doesn't always have to be insane. The trick to evil is having it work in such a way that people can relate to it. If people start relating to your villain slightly, even for a little bit, or understanding where he comes from, then that means you're doing a good job. Now, neutral is a little more difficult. So, neutral is that in-between. They're neither good nor bad, but as neutral goes, a neutral person would prefer good to happen to them, so they're probably going to, be a bit more friendly to people than, say, an evil person would be. They're going to be a little more aligned towards good, simply because they'd prefer a peaceful town over a town overflowing with chaos and invading orcs or murderers and thieves. Now, one thing that I need you to understand though, alignments should not dictate how you play your character. They should guide you in your decision making. If you're playing a lawful good character, and you, in character, really don't care for the law someone's made, or you want to get at someone for something they've done to you before, you can do it. Granted, over time, it may have negative consequences. If you're a paladin, for example, and you go over and you go to get revenge on this guy who stole your money and sold all of your equipment to someone else, and you can't find it anymore, you want to get revenge on him by breaking his legs, killing him, anything. Chances are, it's not going to be how your paladin code works. Obviously, there are exceptions to the rule. There's always exceptions to the rule. But, if you go and murder the guy in cold blood, as a paladin, you're going to suffer for it. Your deity or your order is going to probably come along, and they're going to revoke your position, revoke your powers, or worse. But, if you're, say, a fighter who's lawful good to begin with, there's nothing saying that you can't eventually, because of something that happened, gradually change alignment towards, say, neutral. After seeing some corrupt officials abuse their power, you could move down to chaotic good at first to try and apprehend them and bring them to justice. Maybe after that you do a few more underhanded things to make sure they suffer for what they did. There's nothing saying that a good person can't be corrupted towards evil through subtle deeds. They do say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, the same can work the other way. I've actually had one particular orc war boss, so roam the land, pillaging, destroying, razing villages to the ground, and eventually he ended up getting tired of the constant fighting, the constant death. He didn't like the fact that weekly attempts on his life were made, whether it be from bounty hunters trying to claim his head for the price, or merely his underlings trying to seize his position for themselves. And so eventually he ends up leaving his warband out in the wilds after telling them they no longer have a leader and to disband. Some of them took exception to that. He was thankfully strong enough to deal with it. But he eventually left, settled down in a town. Took a bit of getting used to, but he earned his keep through helping to protect the town from the nearby wildlife, bringing in supplies like lumber, food, furs, pelts, plants even, and eventually was accepted into the town as a proper resident. And to this day, in-game, he lives there as a simple merchant. He lives there, he sells the pelts that he hunts, gets a living from it, gets along, goes to drinking nights with the other hunters. Everything's all well and good for him. And he went from being chaotic evil to being neutral good over the course of probably about 15 in-game years. But I mean, it can happen a lot quicker as well. This is just an example of an NPC that's travelled somewhat due to party interactions, but not entirely. So, first we'll go into each alignment with a little bit of detail and explain why they act like that, or give a few examples of other characters from other fandoms or stories, series that you can sort of relate to, hopefully, and get a bit more of a feel for what the alignments are. We're starting with Lawful Good. Now, this is the Knight of the Realm, the one that follows the laws to the T. They will travel the land, ensuring that no innocents are harmed and that evil is brought to justice. Their greatest fear is to just know that evil goes unpunished and harming innocents, causing issues, stealing, any number of things. They generally want to make the lands a better place and believe that order is one of the best ways to do this. But they are still full of humility. They understand how the world works and what people need to be happy. Sometimes. A good example of lawful good, and this is going to be a little cliche, is Superman. So while, yes, Superman has had his darker days, and there are a lot of sidelines of Superman that I'm not aware of, but he always saves the people that he can. If there's a bus falling, it's going to crush 30 people and there's like 40 people in the bus, he will most likely go and try and catch that bus rather than chase down the villain or the criminal who's running away. He will save the people and then go towards the criminal. He always tries to think of what's best, what is right, but doesn't like breaking the laws to do so. Next up is creative good. Next up is chaotic good. Now, chaotic good is the one that does good without much regard for the law. So they'll move through, steal from the rich and give to the poor, but you know where that's going. They will seek out the corrupt politicians who are high up and abusing their power and try to bring them down a peg or two, or get them convicted for their crimes, or even simply make them suffer for their crimes in other ways that aren't too graphic. They're still good people. Examples of chaotic good is Robin Hood, clearly, and another one is Daredevil. So, while they do good, the laws are there as loose guidelines to them. They may not follow them all the time, in fact, a lot of the time they don't, but they still ensure that they're doing good deeds. They're not breaking the law just because they want to steal someone's stuff. They're breaking the law for good reasons, for the most part. And they don't want to be caught. Next up is neutral good. Now, neutral good is the most good you can be. They do whatever is right, whether the law says so, what their teachings tell them says so, whether they feel it is the right thing. That is what matters. Good examples of neutral good. Luke Skywalker. Very extreme. When he was on Dagobah, Yoda, with his teachings, told him not to leave. But he did so anyway because he thought it was the right thing to do. Another good example is Frodo Baggins from Lord of the Rings. Why, you say? Well, he was just a humble hobbit who ended up going to Rivendell through a few exploits, and then offered to take the ring to Mount Doom himself because he saw the bickering that was going on and thought that there wasn't much he could do, but it was the right thing to do in his eyes. Obviously it was very hard, and over the course of it there were a few things that may have influenced that, but he was a good person. Another one for this is Captain America. Now, a lot of you may think Captain America is more of a lawful good, but then you look at, obviously, the whole Civil War. While he did follow the law before that, at that point it was almost like a turning point because he didn't think what was happening was right. At the same time, he didn't want to go against the law, but the law was going to lead towards some rather unfortunate dealings happening, and he didn't think that was the right way to go. Lawful neutral. Now, lawful neutral often follow a code to a T. They don't really mind either way if this code that they follow causes them to do good or evil specifically, as long as it doesn't bring chaos. It is disciplined and it follows what they are taught. So, a good example of this is a Justicar of the land. Now, they may not seem like much, and they may go around, and to some people they may come across as evil, as they arrest people very harshly for crimes they've done, regardless of what they say or the means they did it in. Sir, I only murdered him. I killed this man because he was trying to kill her. Doesn't matter, you've still committed murder. You're going to be convicted for the crime that you've committed, regardless of the situation it was committed in. That sort of thing. True neutral. Now, true neutral is honestly one of the harder alignments to play well, simply because it's someone where they have conflicted morals or they're not quite sure where they stand. They'd prefer a good neighbour to a bad neighbour, but at the same time, they're not too connected to either one. So, a good example of this is Sherlock Holmes. Now, Sherlock Holmes has done a lot of questionable things in his life, but most of the time he tries to do what he thinks is, well, needs to be done. This can result in him doing some bad things for good reasons or good things for bad reasons. It also leads to him doing things for reasons different to others. He may be trying to solve this murder crime not to try and bring justice to the woman's killer, but because it's a challenge to him with the criminal himself. So he's doing the right thing for the wrong reasons overall. But it makes him a good example of true neutral because he does a bit of both sides. Generally he's seen more as the hero than the villain, but he makes a lot of questionable decisions along the way. Chaotic neutral. Chaotic neutral is a lot of DMs don't like this alignment just because people think the popular opinion of it is it's the lol I'm so random alignment. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, just because I'm chaotic neutral. Look, lol, I stole this man's sword, and then I'm going to stab this baby on the side of the road just because I'm not evil, I'm not good, I can do whatever I want. They run away. It's not how it is. Chaotic neutral is generally quite selfish in how they act, and they may do bad things, good things. They don't really care too much either way, but they'll never go down one of those paths, unless they're changing alignment, obviously. But one of the best examples of this alignment, is Captain Jack Sparrow. Now, towards the end of the series, he may get a little less chaotic neutral, but he is probably the closest example of chaotic neutral I can think of. There's obviously the Deadpool matchup, but we won't go into that, because a lot of people try to make Deadpool characters, and it doesn't work so well when you've got a party of people that are just doing things because they're funny. Now, chaotic neutral, one important thing is you can have friends. Just because you're chaotic neutral doesn't mean that you won't get along with people. Doesn't mean that you have to discard all chances of friendship and go on your own path or abandon your friends, betray them when you get a chance. You can still have friends, you can still have loyalties, and you can still believe in keeping them alive. You don't have to be so selfish as to cast aside your allies. Allies are good regardless of what alignment you are. Friends can be made regardless of what alignment you are. That's not part of the restriction. Now, neutral evil. Neutral evil are generally very bad people. They do evil because they enjoy it. Whether it be they want to see someone suffering, or they want to simply kill someone and take their power, or for some other reason. Good examples of this is Scar from The Lion King. He killed Mufasa simply because he wanted to rule the Pride. He enjoyed it while he was at it as well. Yzma wants to kill Kuzco for her own personal gain. And then you've got Two-Face. Two-Face is probably, in my opinion, as neutral evil as they come. He may start out with good intentions as Harvey Dent, but things change. I'm not too educated in the law there, so we won't go too deep into that. Alright, chaotic evil. Now, chaotic evil is an alignment I would recommend people do not play in a party. It is very hard to keep a party cohesive and working together when you've got someone who's chaotic evil in the party. They're the kind that walk along and feel, wouldn't it be fun to see what happens when we burn this building down? That guy insulted me in the tavern. Instead of just, ignoring and brushing him off, I'm going to punch him in the face. I might stab him afterwards. They do evil because it's fun, or it's there, or they feel like it. The best example of this is the Joker from Batman. The Joker is deranged, obviously, but he does these things because he wants to. He thinks it's fun. He wants to play with people and cause destruction. He has no care for the laws of the world or the land, and just does what he pleases. Lawful evil. Now, lawful evil, these are the harsh Justicars. These are the ones that abuse their power for their own gain, but keep it within the law. A lot of people say that lawyers are lawful evil. Not always true. Look at Phoenix Wright. But you can look at several other characters. The Sheriff of Nottingham, for example. He runs a place. He governs. He may not be doing it all for the sake of the people, but he governs the place and keeps order. He may leave them in a bit of squalor from time to time and charges high taxes, but he does it for his own personal gain. He keeps it within the law. He may even abuse the laws to get what he wants at his own leisure, but that's that. Another good example is Lex Luthor or Cersei from Game of Thrones. They abuse the law and the wording to their advantage. Right, so these are the alignments that are in the game. D&D, other things they can also be used for. Some people prefer to play without them, and that's perfectly fine. It's completely up to you. I find they're useful guides to working out how your character or how other NPCs may react. But these are just guidelines. None of these alignments should dictate how you play your character. They should guide you, give you a bit of information, insight onto how your character may react, but they should never stop your character from doing what they want. If your character really wants to go and kill that guy, or wants to go and save that guy. Their alignment shouldn't stop them. Just because you're good doesn't mean you can't commit evil acts, and just because you're evil doesn't mean you can't commit good acts. It may, over time, change your alignment, and there's nothing wrong with that. Unless you're certain classes, in which case, if you stray from the path, you may get punished for it. But there are blackguards. Paladins fall and become blackguards from time to time. It can be a good character development for you. I've had plenty of players play a character all the way through until they've become evil, and then have watched as the world around them has changed, how their perception changes of everything else, and what's worse, how it all comes to end in certain situations when they bite off more than they can chew, or when they turn on their party, or others who have betrayed them, at the most unfortunate of times. But that's it for this video. I hope it helped, and it was a little discombobulated, I know. But if you have questions, drop them below. I'll answer them when I get a chance. Feel free to drop anything you want to see next down in the comments, or message us at the Facebook page. We're always open to questions or requests. I'll add it to a list and we'll get around to it as soon as we can. But I'll catch you all next time. See ya.